Les Brown's story doesn't begin on a stage. It begins in struggle, in rejection, and in a place where most people would have surrendered. Born in an abandoned building in a low-income section of Liberty City, Florida, Les and his twin brother Wesley were given away at birth. They were adopted by a kind and generous woman named Mamie Brown, a cafeteria worker with a sixth-grade education but a heart as deep as the ocean. She had no money, but she had love, and that was the foundation that would carry Les through the storms of life. From the beginning, life didn't just whisper, "You can't," it shouted it. He was placed in special education classes and labeled as educably mentally retarded, a title that stuck to him like glue, suffocating his confidence and stunting his potential. That label didn't just come from a system. It came with expectations, or rather, the lack of them. Teachers didn't call on him. Students laughed at him. The system was designed to keep him in the back of the class, quiet, invisible, and convinced he was nothing more than a mistake. But even in the silence of those lonely days, something inside Les was speaking louder, a whisper that refused to die. A whisper that said, "You are more." Still, like many of us, he began to believe what the world told him. He internalized the label. He wore it like a second skin, until one day everything changed. In school, a substitute teacher named Mr. Leroy Washington walked into Les's life. One day, this man asked Les to come up to the chalkboard and solve a problem. Les shook his head and mumbled, "I can't do that. I'm educably mentally retarded." The class burst into laughter, but Mr. Washington didn't. He walked over to Les and looked him dead in the eye and said, "Don't you ever say that again. Someone else's opinion of you does not have to become your reality." Those words cracked the concrete around Les's belief system. For the first time, someone spoke to the potential inside him, not the failure. That moment planted a seed, one that would grow into greatness. From that day forward, Les Brown decided to rewrite the narrative. He began studying, reading, and surrounding himself with people who inspired him. He fed his mind with books, audio recordings, and mentors. He realized that while he couldn't control where he came from, he could control where he was going. He began to dream again, not the kind of dreams you have while you're asleep, but the kind that keep you awake at night. Still, the path was anything but smooth. He took jobs as a janitor and sanitation worker. He was rejected from radio stations. He failed often. But he never gave up. One day, he got a job at a small radio station as an errand boy. He watched and learned. He practiced when no one was watching. And then it happened. One of the DJs got drunk on the job and couldn't go on air. Les was the only one available. That moment was his chance. He stepped up to the mic and delivered with such energy, passion, and confidence that the station offered him a permanent spot. That single opportunity was the beginning of his rise, not just in radio, but in life. It was proof that preparation meets opportunity. You don't get ready when the opportunity comes. You stay ready. What makes Les Brown so inspiring is that he never had a head start. He didn't have wealth, influence, or connections. What he had was hunger, a deep, burning desire to be more, do more, and impact others. He understood that most people don't fail because they aim too high and miss. They fail because they aim too low and hit. Most people live their lives stuck in mediocrity, afraid to take risks, afraid to be judged, afraid to fall. But Les chose to believe that failure wasn't the opposite of success. It was part of it. Every no brought him closer to a yes. Every fall made him stronger. Every rejection was a redirection. Eventually, Les Brown became one of the most sought-after motivational speakers in the world. But it wasn't just his story that moved people, it was his authenticity. He wasn't some untouchable icon, he was real. He spoke from pain, he spoke from failure. And most importantly, he spoke from a place of belief, not just in himself, but in everyone who ever felt like they weren't enough. He told the world, "You have greatness within you," and he meant it. Because if a poor, abandoned boy from Liberty City could rise and lead millions, so could anyone willing to believe, to work, and to keep going. Every person on this planet has a voice inside that whispers doubts. You're too late. You're too old. You're not smart enough. You've failed too many times. But that voice doesn't own you. Les Brown teaches that the most powerful conversation you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. If you can't speak life into your own dream, nobody else will. It's your responsibility to challenge that inner critic, to starve your fears and feed your faith. He reminds us that you don't need a degree, a perfect background, or an easy life. What you need is a reason, a hunger, a why that burns so deeply it keeps you up at night and wakes you up in the morning. Most people never realize their full potential because they let the world define them. But Les Brown teaches that you define you. The world might label you, laugh at you, doubt you, but none of that matters unless you believe it. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to start. Start where you are with what you have. As Les says, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Too many people wait until they feel ready, but the truth is nobody is ever truly ready. You become ready by doing the work, and maybe that's what makes Les Brown's stories so powerful. Not the rags to riches journey, but the mindset that made it possible. It's not just about motivation, it's about transformation. It's about refusing to be a product of your past and choosing instead to be a vision of your future. Every day you're writing your own story. Every choice, every thought, every action, they're all shaping who you become. And just like Les, you have a choice: accept the label or break it. Let the past define you or rise above it. So ask yourself, what are you believing about your own life? Whose voice are you listening to? The one that says you can't? Or the one that says you must? Are you letting fear hold the pen, or are you taking control of your own story? Les Brown went from rejected to respected, not because he had more talent or opportunity, but because he chose to believe in himself when no one else would. He made a decision to fight for his future, even when the odds were against him. And now, it's your turn. You have greatness within you. The most powerful tool you have isn't money, strength, or even education, it's belief. Belief in yourself, your potential, your purpose. Les Brown understood early in life that if he didn't believe in himself, no one else would. After being labeled educably mentally retarded in school, he could have carried that identity for the rest of his life. But one teacher's words changed his entire trajectory. When Mr. Washington told him, someone else's opinion of you does not have to become your reality, it was more than advice. It was a lifeline. It gave him permission to dream again, to think beyond his environment, to rewrite the story others had written for him. Les began to realize that the words we speak to ourselves carry the weight of our future. If you constantly repeat, I can't do this, you'll find ways to make that true. But if you say, I am capable, I will succeed, I deserve more, your mind starts looking for proof to support it. Les calls this programming your mind for success. Every day, he repeated affirmations. He visualized his goals. He spoke life over his circumstances. Not because it sounded good, but because it was necessary. He was fighting decades of conditioning, poverty, doubt, abandonment, and the only way to win was to replace the lies with truth. Your words are creative forces. They shape your self-image. They determine your energy. And over time, they direct your destiny. That's why Les Brown constantly reminds audiences, you have greatness within you. He doesn't say it as a feel-good slogan. He says it because he's lived it. He knows the struggle of trying to climb out of a pit of insecurity, and he knows that belief, spoken and repeated, is the ladder, but belief alone isn't enough. You have to feed it daily. You must protect your mind from negative influences, from people who doubt your vision, from media that drains your energy, from thoughts that drag you backward. Les teaches that the people you surround yourself with can either stretch your faith or strangle your future. So choose wisely, get around winners. Get around people who challenge you to rise. Because belief is contagious, and so is doubt. In a world where it's easy to speak fear, frustration, and failure, Les Brown dares you to speak faith, speak possibility, speak life. Because once your belief becomes unshakable, your potential becomes unstoppable. The greatest battles are not on the outside, they're in your own mind. And when you master that space, there's nothing you can't overcome. If there's one phrase that defines Les Brown, it's this: you gotta be hungry. It's more than a catchphrase. It's a lifestyle, a mindset, a code to live by. Hunger is what separates those who dream from those who do. It's what drives ordinary people to achieve extraordinary things. Les didn't succeed because life made it easy. He succeeded because he was hungry for more, hungry to rise above his circumstances, hungry to prove the world wrong, hungry to live out. The greatness he knew was within him. Hunger is not about physical appetite. It's about desire. That burning, almost irrational need to become something greater than what you are today. Les Brown often says, people that are hungry are willing to do the things today others won't do, in order to have the things tomorrow others won't have. That means showing up early, staying late, reading the extra book, making the extra call, doing it when you're tired, doing it when no one claps, when no one sees. When no one believes in you, except you, most people aren't living their dreams, not because they aren't capable, but because they've lost their hunger. They've gotten too comfortable, too afraid, too distracted. Les teaches that if you want to change your life, the first thing you must do is raise your hunger level. You must become obsessed with your purpose. Let it keep you up at night. Let it push you when you feel like quitting. Because hunger fuels persistence. And persistence always wins. Les Brown knows hunger personally. He remembers sleeping on the floor, being broke, being laughed at, rejected, ignored, but none of it stopped him. Why? Because his hunger was bigger than his pain, bigger than his excuses, bigger than his fear. That's the difference. Successful people feel fear, just like everyone else. But their hunger for the future is greater than their fear of failure. He reminds us that hunger is not something you're born with, it's something you build. It's a decision you make every single day to fight, to grow, to stretch. It's about taking one more step when everything in you says stop. And if you've lost your hunger, you can get it back. Feed your mind, reconnect with your purpose. Get around people who light your fire. Do the work that scares you. Push past the comfort zone. The more you feed your hunger, the stronger it grows. So what's your hunger? What are you willing to sacrifice, to fight for, to become? You don't need more time. You don't need more talent. You need more hunger. Because when you're truly hungry, nothing can stop you.